Welcome. I'm Shelly. I'm part of ʻAʻaliʻi Alliance and Aloha at Home, and this is our po'o of the project, Kanoe. Kanoe, did you wanna?
How's it, everyone? Yeah, nice to meet everybody. Some of you folks I know, Kanoe, Enos. We can go. We want to go.
You want me to go to our presentation?
Moderator, did you have anything? And then you want to start us off, and then we'll roll, or we just roll into it.
Yeah, we can go ahead and get started whenever you're ready.
Okay, cool. Okay, nice to meet everybody. My name is Kanoe Enos, and I am for lack of a better word, the po'o of Aloha at Home. And I'm a social worker by training. Just a little bit about myself, maybe for context for you all, and then Shelly, you can share some context too. Um, I grew up west side Oahu. My dad was a community organizer up Waianae Valley. He started a cultural learning center, Ka'ala, and so I was rooted in what sort of cultural abundance and education. But I went to school at Waianae too, so I was privy to a lot of different worlds, right? And so in my path, in my journey in life, I ended up, dropping out of high school, getting into trouble, did this and that, and then I found my way back to college, and ultimately I graduated my degree, social work, master social work, and I worked for years, as I know Shelly, at the Liliuokalani Trust. That used to be QLCC out in Wamanalo, and I work with families, orphan, destitute, Native Hawaiian children, and their ohana. So families that are coming, usually one parent is either deceased or substance abuse or incarceration. Not unlike the families I grew up with. Really, some of my best friends. The families there was a lot of similarity, and after doing that, I learned a lot. I learned about the patterns that I seen, and now I do work. I left the trust and I do, for lack of a better words, consulting, but I do a lot of community and collective impact work. And these are one of the projects that I work on. And so I'll kick it over to Shelly, and then we can dive more into what Aloha at Home is and why we do it, what we believe it can cause.
Yeah. So kind of the opposite. I live on the other side of the island in Kaneohe. I didn't go into my Cholo'i until after I graduated from high school. Didn't know nothing about it, and so just that kind of a background. And now I really love working with our families and community. I really have a heart. I'm a parent too, so I like daily, like we're just talking about, we're not perfect, but we're always trying to be better at, taking care of our keiki. And so this project is very close to me because I feel like these are the things, the practices that I want to also use in my ohana with my keiki. So happy to have everybody.
Yeah. You know what, Shelly? There's enough folks. Can everybody go around and tell us, your name, maybe what organization, and then where do you call home? And just you can just bounce it around. I'll kick it off, and then just like 30 seconds. That'll help us. I think it's much more my style anyway. Let's go with uh I'll go to you, cuz Aurora. Name, org, and then what you call home.
Hi everybody, I'm Aurora. I work for Family Hui Hawaii, and I grew up on the east side in Kahalu, but I currently reside in Waianae. Yeah, that's it for me.
Wow. Awesome. Okay, you can kick it to somebody else if you see a name there. If you can see anyone.
Let's kick it to Glenda.
And
Good morning, everyone. Born and raised here on the island of Lanai, I work for Maui Family Support Services Incorporated as a family support worker for their branch here on the island of Lanai.
wonderful. Mahalo, Linda.
I'll send it off to Suli.
Sule.
Aloha, Suliana Ki from Molokai. I also work for Maui Family Support Services. I'm the outreach here, as well as the youth service facilitators in the middle and high school. Where I call home, here in Molokai, but my husband is also from Kauai, so I would say Kauai and Molokai. And I will pass it to Brent.
Hi, Brent.
Aloha, brother.
How you guys?
My name is Brent Nakihe, born and raised on Molokai. I'm the juvenile probation officer here, and yeah, nice to meet all you guys.
See you, Brother Brent. I'll kick off for you, Brother Brent. Paula.
Hey everybody, my name is Paula. I work at Catholic Charities in the statewide Resource Families program. And I grew up in Pennsylvania, but now I live in Makakilo on Oahu. And let me see, who hasn't gone yet?
Monica, Kayla, Darlene.
How about Monica?
Yeah, unmute Monica. There you go.
Yep. Gotta take a second to unmute. Figured Paula would call me. And Kauai's in the house.
Hey.
Yeah, I'm in Kauai. I work for Catholic Charities and help families go through the licensing process to become foster care resource family homes.
Wonderful.
Deisha.
Okay, Deisha.
Oh, you said it correctly. Mahalo. My name is Deja. I am the forensic interview specialist at the Maui Children's Justice Center. I call home ʻAʻaliʻi Oahu, and I currently reside in Makena, Maui.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Darlin?
Hi, I'm on Maui. I am the provider specialist with Maui Family Support Services. I live in Wailuku. My daddy is from Waimanalo, and my children live on the mainland. We still hope. Okay.
Oh, thank you. God's country, I'm an Aloha. Okay, Jennifer, and then we go Kayla, and then Connie.
Hi, my name is Jen. I work with Maui Family Support Services. I'm the intake specialist with Quality Care for Hawaiian Keiki.
Hello.
Aloha, my name is Kayla Shepherd. I was born and raised on Maui. I work for Maui Youth and Family Services, the Ke'alapono program, and I'm a Maui High counselor for substance use.
Oh, wow. Right on. And Connie, and then brother Chad, I see he's popped on.
Sorry, my name's Kelsey. I'm under Connie. I was just sending a message to say that I was gonna log back out and log back in. But so my name's Kelsey. I'm from PAC. I am from Maui, Hawaii. My family is from the upcountry area. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, Chad and then Debbie.
Chad Domingo from the Community Children Council on Oahu, but we have 17 sites around the state. So just so happened that I'm in charge of Maui, Lanai, and Maui, Central Maui. Born and raised on Oahu. Mom's from Waipahu, dad's from Kaimoki area, and currently live in Waipahu, and I work in Kahala.
Oh, wow. The whole island, bro. Yeah. Right on. And then Debbie?
Hi, my name is Debbie Kiabu, and I'm from the Department of Education. I'm here on the island of Maui. I service the Hana, Lahaina, Lanai, and Molokai schools. I was born and raised on Maui, and I live here in Wailuku.
Wonderful. Okay, I think we got everybody, and I don't want to take up too much time, but I think it's important in this kind of work that everybody gets to know each other. Don't I find this kind of work is, as important as your organization is and the work that you do, from my years of experience, and I'm sure some of you guys can attest to that too, it's your network become one of your most vital and important resources, right? And so whenever I get opportunity to have folks from different organizations, to me, it just makes sense, because in Bamba, you go, hey, you was on that team with me before, and we on something. And then that only benefits the people that we serve, I find. So, mahalo. Okay, I'll kick it over to Shelly for the more formal part of our presentation.
Okay, mahalo for sharing who you are, where you come from. In this conference, I'm noticing that we are really sharing or digging into our ike of our olelo no iao. So I wanted to share this one. Ike aku, ike mai, kokua aku, kokua mai, pela ihola ka nohona ohana. And I just love this one because it reminds me that in family, it's always reciprocal, right? What we give, what we receive. But it's also, to me, how do you ike? And to me, we really have to kilo and observe our children. What do they like? What don't they like? Who are their friends? What are they doing? And so it just makes me take a moment to really kilo and understand who my child is. And so I just wanted to start that off as we begin talking about Aloha at Home. And so one of the first things I think we can do is just to ground ourselves. So I'm going to lead us in a quick kanuha, just to kind of center ourselves, and then we can get started. So if you want to sit in some way, we're just going to breathe 3 times, okay? We're going to breathe in, fill your belly, breathe out, and then you're just going to breathe the ha sound, yeah? So if you want to close your eyes, you can. Want to sit somewhere, you can comfortably. Okay, Hanu, you're going to breathe in, fill it all the way up. You're going to hold it, and then you're going to breathe that out. All the way out. Again, you're going to breathe in, all the way out. Hold it, and then you're going to breathe out. Okay, last one, big breath. Expand. Hold. And then ha. Okay, come on back.
Oh, the long hold, Shelly. Give me a buzz.
I know. Sorry. I know. I was like in the moment. It seems
Forgot
kind of
little.
silly. Yeah, who's here? It seems kind of silly to me sometimes, like, oh, we're gonna breathe. But actually, these are these little tools that we can use for ourselves and for our keiki, just to take a moment, when they're feeling all kind of feelings, to just center in. So, yeah, so I just wanted to share that. Okay, Kanoe.
Yeah.
On to
Okay.
you.
So what is Aloha at Home? So it can get, the backstory is a little bit complicated, but you start with like, what is ECAS? And so, ECAS, the Early Childhood Action Strategy, is a backbone funded out of, coming out of downtown. And what they do is they organize their collective impact effort. They try to organize different parties to come together, and really the focus is on early childhood. And so there's 5 or 6 teams, and each team is focused on different things like development of children, education, prenatal, and so they believe that so what they do is convene NGOs like nonprofits and government, bring them together. They all join different teams, and then they kind of come up with strategy and action them. And it's effective. It can be super effective, right? Because in one hand, know what the other hand is doing, right? And so you coordinate efforts. And so when I was working at Lilo County Trust, they asked me to come sit on team 2, which is around safe and nurturing families. And so the safe and nurturing families, it's there's folks from Department of Health, DHS, Ho'ikaika sits on it, Lilo County Trust, family programs, family hui. And so everybody comes together, we meet monthly, and we were meeting. I became the convener, and the call came out to say, well, what would really help? There was maybe a few years ago, some really tragic deaths of children at the hands of family members. And a call came out to like, how do we get more messaging out to community, things that can help de-escalation, things that can give context, tools to families dealing with, the stress of living here, let's be honest, right? And so within that, we thought there was a study done, funded by ECAS, and it came out, well, we have to do a messaging campaign that covers these 5 things over 5 years. The problem was, this is just objectively like what the conversation was, just try to stay away from judgment, but it was a firm from the mainland, from the continent, and they were worried about some of the messaging. How would we frame it in a local context? And so I was charged with, they brought me on, they said, can you help us figure it out? And the messaging kind of started with like these really tried and true evidence-based practices from the continent coming out of the Harvard School of Early Child Development, and it was called Serve and Return, and it was about you spend some of you may have heard about it. You spend X amount of minutes a day going over 5 stages, and we'll jump into it. Of like talking to, serving to your child, letting them return. The really conscious builds. It builds all those connections, healthy development. It's supposed to say, you spend X amount of time here, and it's outsized benefit for keiki socially, emotionally, psychologically, and even physically, their health in the long term. And we kind of know that those of us who do this work, the more kids feel noticed, loved, the more sure they are, the more confident they are, and therefore they're likely to have better outcomes. And so the messaging starts there, and it goes all the way to understanding violence from a community perspective. The problem was that they were like, serve and return doesn't resonate with our families. And so I began by shopping it around and meeting with different communities. I went to, Shelly, where did we go? Like Women's Way. We did some stuff with Family Hui partners, trying to understand could we frame some of this messaging. And so the concept we landed, somebody said something pretty genius. If you want to pass on these messages, which we believe would be super helpful, because they come with tools and all that, you got to frame it in place. You got to frame it in. You have to embed it, frame it. The baseline has to be cultural values, right? Now, whether that be, I'm not talking necessarily culture that like halal, like really, really heavy protocol. I'm talking about the stuff that those of us who love Hawaii and value it know those things like humility, things like aloha, things like patience that we practice with each other why we love living here. And so we framed it. We went ahead and we looked back and we thought of anti-aloha, anti-Paki's, the aloha values, right? And we said if we frame it in that, if we embed it in that, we can lead with that as the messaging. Then we can start talking about serve and return. Then we can start talking about protective factors. What we were concerned about is if we led with serve and return and protective factors for the communities that are maybe battling with the most violence, statistically, it would be another like someone telling me what to do, someone judging me on the way I parent. And I was on Waianae High School kid, never go to school, drop out. There was multiple interventions tried on me at one point. And I remember every time somebody came in, I was like, oh, what now? What now? Like all the different interventions. What always worked with me was when someone built pilina first, right? They build relationship, they build rapport. It was non-judgmental. So Aloha at Home is rooted in cultural values, but it's rooted in the most important thing we start with is non-judgment. Like I think on our website, the first thing we say is parenting is hard, right? And then we go into parenting is also hard when you live in the most expensive state in the United States, right? When the cost of living is the highest, the hustle and bustle for a laid-back island lifestyle, it's banana. To just survive here is really, really hard. So we lead with that. That's our lead message. And then we say there are cultural values, there are some other evidence-based tools that may help. And that's kind of the overall background of what Aloha at Home is. Shelly, am I still on track? Okay, cool. So these are the folks that participated with us and maybe we want to go into what we're doing. The next slide, Shel. Okay. Having technical difficulties?
I'm doing it. Are you not seeing it?
No, it's not coming up.
Okay. Yeah. Let me come out of this then. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Let me come out. It's not.
So any questions so far about this? Any questions? Anything that remains kind of unclear? So before you said, it's also super hard. Like I don't guarantee that this will be successful at all, right? This is like taking a shot at trying to frame something, and I can give you some feedback on how it's kind of working. Go ahead, Shel.
Okay. Okay. Google Slide just decided to
crash.
kick me out. Okay, there we go. Okay, here we
go. There we go.
Okay, there you go. Can you see that?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. So the way we're kind of getting these messages out is we do every year. So we're still in year 1, right? So the messaging starts like this. It goes, so what is serve and return? 5 easy steps. Then the next messaging goes, what happens when there's a breakdown of serve and return? Like what happens when that doesn't exist? What's the social, emotional, psychological damage to keiki? What can happen? Then the third year of messaging starts to get more sensitive. Third year starts talking about violence in the home, de-escalation. How do we use tools to de-escalate? How do we use family to solve problems? Then it goes to the last one. The fourth year is we're going to start talking about what are the histories. What is the history of violence here? Where did it come from? Like, and for me, this is going to be important messaging because if you listen to some of the old time kupuna, like slapping your kid, licking your kid, that wasn't on thing pre-contact. Like beating the crap out of your kids, lickings, all that stuff, that wasn't really a concept. Some theories believe that came with Calvinists, right? The guys that bring us the mu'u and the sort of spare the rod, spoil the child. So a lot of that might have come in, then layered on top of cultural historical trauma. And so what we manifested now, that sort of like the idea of part of raising a child is slapping them or this and that, and that's been ingrained. Like I grew up around like whenever we see one kid that like acting out, it's that kid need lickings. And then so like where I grew up now, we play any violence, right? And people say, those kids need lickings. I would argue, I think the problem is the kid got too much lickings. Right? Like that's my theory. Right? Like most of the kids I know that behave like that, they usually got dirty lickings when they was younger. Right? And so they just, hold trauma like on basket and you just keep them there. Someone give you trauma, you pass them along, right? And so that's the kind of messaging. We want to start to unpack some of that. And we want to do it how? How do we want to get it out? Part of it is we do these toolkits for families. We go home, give them to keiki, family engagement stuff. We do social media. We have a website, and then we also do community events. So there's really like 3 or 4 different ways that we're starting to get these messages out. Yeah, that's good. Okay, sure. Any questions? So relatively clear. Yeah. And so these are the aloha values, just in case you don't know, right? So Auntie Pilahi Paki, she did this in the 1970s, and she got it coded into through the Hawaii legislature, yeah. So she said, well, how do you define aloha? It's called the aloha poem or the ode. So akahai, these are the values that in pretty much every month we're like sharing this, and then we're saying how it can look like in the home. So it's not abstract, right? You should practice akahai. That means nothing to somebody if you don't give them examples, right? It's just like, oh, should I know that? Because I don't really know that. So akahai is framed, the way she explains it, is kindness, but it's tenderness, right? Like you're always leading with that. Like that should be your sort of lead in when you're engaging with keiki. Lokahi, you're always kind of trying to find harmony, right? Trying to find unity. That's your goal, right? It's very, very communal thinking. Like I am because you are. We're always trying to reach that sort of state of togetherness, right? Olu olu is to be like pleasant, agreeable, kind, a different kind of kind, like more like not looking for a beef. You know what I mean? Looking to nurture. Ha'a, which is, humility, modesty, and then ahonui. So I think she describes as patience, perseverance, but it's almost like waiting for the right moment, right? So like if you're not in a good space and you know what you're going to say can affect folks negatively and it's not productive, sometimes you'd practice ahonui, right? And so these are the things that we frame as. So we start with parenting is hard. We begin to develop these messaging to social media posts and like how that could look in a home. And one of the things that we give out in our toolkits, it has like, what does akahai look like? What could that look like in a family environment? And just a little bit of background is that every time we've done this with families and communities, it's resonated really well with families. They're saying it finally, like it makes sense. Like I know these values, I think I live them, but to give it a name helps me better to perpetuate it, right? Because it's hard to address something or perpetuate something if you don't have a name to it, right? And so, or you don't have an example of it. So that's kind of where we lead off. And then I'll kick it over to Shelly to kind of start engaging so I can talk less at you guys.
Yeah. So we are going to do a breakout, but I just wanted to just set a little bit of the context too, in that, we had to have a foundational messaging to families because, these are a lot of heavier topics that we want to eventually kind of introduce and explore. But we knew we needed a strong foundation, and that's where the Aloha values come in. And I wanted to just share that these, although they're rooted in Hawaii, they're really universal values. So a lot of us come from maybe different cultures, different places, but these are like universal values that we can grab hold of. And because we live in Hawaii, we really wanted to root it in our ike kupuna. So like we look to our kupuna and what are the things that they're sharing, and that we built that strong foundation to just start us out in Aloha at home. And so we're going to have you think about, what is an Aloha value that really resonates with you in terms of maybe something that you feel like you really practice in your home, or even one that you feel like, oh, I need to work on it more at home. So just kind of, I'm going to show the list again. Is there any value that speaks to you, and how does it show up in your home? How do you practice it, or how do you want to practice it more in your home? So we're going to break out, if that's okay, Sarah, and have you maybe take 5 minutes to just share in a small group.
And then we'll come back and we'll share out.
Yeah, maybe we'll just share out.
Because this helps develop this tool as well for us as we move forward. And hopefully it begin to develop it for you guys too. Shelly, is there a place where they can reference this?
I'm going to put it in the chat.
Okay.
Okay. Sarah, if you do your magic, that'd be awesome.
So take 5 minutes, talk among yourself, share out as best as you can, and we come back, we'll share all together.
Okay, welcome back.
Welcome back.
We're very front and center. I like the Brady Bunch, when we're all in a line.
I'm looking at you, Shelly.
Oh, there's a story. Welcome back. So, any thoughts you had? Anything come up? Any similarities you saw? If anybody maybe we'll take 2 people that might want to share out. No pressure. I did hear talking, so I know there was talking involved. Any common values came up, maybe? We're just talking about aho nui. Like, we need a lot more of that, especially in the morning, trying to get everybody out the door.
I will say this, no matter how involved I am with helping to develop this, I fail every single day with my kids. Every day. Every day I say stuff like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. I'm better than I used to be, but I don't stretch of the imagination. Anybody know me, they would think me as a guru on like nurturing children perfectly. Like, I think this resonated with me because I realized how hard it is, right? Like that's the part that I find almost like a puzzle to like implement some of this stuff daily. So
yeah,
I don't know how do others find it.
Kayla, I hear you saying coming home from work and both being burnt out. Did you want to elaborate? It seems like yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Well, we don't have any children, so it's just my husband and I. He's sometimes a child, but
he's stressful too. I get it. He's a stressful person
children,
too.
So just
yeah, your first one.
I am too. But since we both work in like healthcare, he's a nurse practitioner. I'm a mental health counselor. Sometimes we both come home and we just don't have enough for each other. And I actually heard about this system that you can use, and you come home and you tell your partner what percent you're at. And so if like I'm feeling really good, I have 70% to give to you. But if I'm really bad, I got 10%. And if you have 10%, okay, let's both leave each other alone and do our thing. But if you have 80%, maybe you take care of me and you take care of dinner tonight.
I like that, Kayla. That is such an awesome way to communicate. You don't have to have a lot of words. Like, what are you today? 50. Okay, I'm 20. Whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, you know what to do since you're higher. I love that. The percentages. Yeah. Okay.
You know what that is? Like this kind of stuff to me, even these values and that, like I've literally been told that by my wife. She taught me that. That thing right there, it's like somebody's watching Brene Brown. Apparently I've been made to watch those things as well. you can see it as touchy-feely, right? You know what I think it is? Practical. Even these values, right? From a pragmatic, practical approach, like if you wanna have a better relationship with your wife and your kids, these kind of things can help, right? To say like, oh, I don't want to get all emotional, let me touch. Well, then you're gonna keep running into the same problems. Like, you just then no complain. You know what I mean? So yeah, I do find it valuable. So that's a good tip. I would say that's trying to practice grace, right? Like akahai, like you are saying either give me grace or like have that percentage is saying like I need, if I'm only 10%, I need grace. I need you to practice grace with me, you know? So, and these values, as my pops told me one time, like, he was a cultural guy, and he was saying, like, good Hawaiian values, at the end of the day, just good human values, right? The context but every healthy society has values like this, right? It's just that the context is Hawaiian here. Yeah. So great.
Right.
So what else we got on the chat show?
Yeah. Okay. People are loving the percentages. Yeah, I think that communication, whatever style
Husband. Hey, you're a good husband.
is nice. Yeah.
Yeah, man. The wife is
Julie
always right.
taught her
I
husband.
found
Yeah.
that as well. Oh, how could I be so dumb? Teach me more.
Well,
That
yep.
that works.
Yep. You learn that value soon enough. Yeah. And Suli said she got her husband, he makes dinner all the time, so she's
Yeah,
trained
yeah.
him well.
Happy spouse, happy house. Boy,
Yeah.
have I learned that. Yeah.
So I like that we're talking about too. It's not just about our keiki, it's about our partnership with our partner, whoever, if you have one or don't, whoever it is in that household that you are working together to raise children or raise yourselves. I think it's important to strengthen those relationships too. So mahalo for bringing that up. Okay. Any final thoughts? If not, we're going to move on. I forget. Oh, Kanoe, we're doing protective factors next.
Oh, yeah. So a part of this, and thank you for that. Again, the way I look at the protective factors is the way I look at the values. It's like, it's practical, right? Like, when you understand as a parent, as a caretaker, that there are these things that all the data guys and all the research guys said, yo, these things, like these 5 things, if they're working, they're firing, they're going well, chances are there's a safer and nurturing home environment for you, for your keiki, right? And so you folks may know this already, but these are the ways that we're trying to integrate that with the values, right? With the Aloha values. Because I felt that if we led and we went out into communities like I grew up in, and say, hey, let me teach you about protective factors, folks would be like they don't, like, what? I don't really have the time. And right, or I don't want to be preached at, because anytime you can go to any community and talk story with parenting and doing that kind of stuff, I think by the fact that you're there and doing it can be misconstrued as an assumption or an accusation that they're doing it wrong, right? That they are perpetrators, that they did, chances are we're working in certain demographics too, like, oh, brown people hit kids, so we got to go tell them like how to be better parents, right? And so we never lead with that. Like, the protective factors come after the values. Like, here are some values. Our kupuna know the kupunas of this, the ike kupuna that promoted health here. Here's what it was. Then we start saying, here, there's these other things that may help too. Let's think critically about these 5 things, right? Parental resilience. How are you doing? How's your resilience? Do you have social supports? What does that look like? Healthy social supports, right? Not social support to tell you, frick the kids, come on, we'll go drink. That's not usually healthy. Healthy social supports is like, hey, it's okay to feel this way or that way. You're trying your best, that's all that matters, kind, right? Understanding child development. Like, are you expecting from your 8-year-old what is reasonable to expect from an 8-year-old? Like, why you never do this, or why you never wash dishes, or why you, or whatever it is, why you cry so much, right? At some ages, that's where they are. Do you understand enough for that so you don't take on personal as a parent? Do you have concrete support? Do you got enough to live? Do you got enough to put shelter, put food on a table, right? And then, are you helping your kids be awareness with their feelings? Where are they at? How do they emote? How do they share that in a healthy way? Because we know how they can share that unhealthily, right? Like hit first, ask questions later kind, right? Like, are you helping them be aware I'm feeling in this space, therefore I need to remove myself or I need to take a minute out? Like these things, if you understand them and you develop them as a parent and caretaker, chances are your life gets a little bit easier, right? So we try to weave that. We'll start with the cultural values, and then we'll start weaving in a serve and return. Then we'll start really, sort of weaving in what is parental resilience, and we'll tie it. We try to tie it to different values, if that makes sense. Yeah. Now, I do want to add this, and this is a super important thing because I like to think of things as larger systems. We also say like, it isn't fair to tell families like these are the only things you need and these are the only things that need to be done. It's really tools that if you folks do, things get better. There's also a heavy a heavy dose of understanding that by and large, for some community, life ain't fair. Things are exponentially different and hard for certain communities, just culturally, historically, and that there should be, and I tell this, I coach up to the people who fund this and say, you guys should also be investing in like income equality, lower home prices, right? Because you cannot expect, just these tools alone in a bubble will make safer and nurturing homes. Like that's completely unrealistic and unfair. These are a component. Aloha at home is a component, right? By and large, you should always be trying to fix the stuff upstream. This is really kind of downstream stuff. Yeah, that needed to be said. So advocacy is important, right? Income inequality, things need to be addressed. Unfair business practices, wages, those kind of things need to be, poor access to healthcare. All that stuff needs to be thought of when you think about these kind of things as well. Not to go too far off on a tangent. I just don't want you guys going like, oh, this is the only thing, and you wouldn't, but like Kanoe thinks this is the only thing to make healthier homes. No, there's a whole other piece to how we achieve that. Yeah. Okay, but these are the protective factors, Shelly. Sorry, I went off on a tangent. Okay, next. And then serve and return. This is the last tool. This is probably the one that's most maybe abstract, feels kind of unfamiliar on the surface. And it came out of the Center on the Developing Child out of Harvard. And, smart guys over there, right? They went, they tested, they looked at like healthier kids who have long-term, disproportionate better health outcomes, social incomes, psychological, what was happening with them when they were kids. What are the things? And so what they found was that constant connection between being noticed, being recognized, being talked with, being lifted up, right? And so they broke that down into like 5 steps when you engage with keiki. The first one is you notice. You notice what they're doing. Are you encouraging them? So you're creating a back and forth, right? You're naming what's happening. And these are happening between the ages of 0 to 5, right? And then you wait and you have them respond, right? You have them sort of return back to you. And then you take turns and you guys go back and you guys go forth, right? And that seems like that's pretty easy to do. Yes. The hard part is that oftentimes, and as myself, like now that I'm aware of it, I realize like I'll go days without doing this without my kid, with my child, like days. Like I'll be like, they talked at me, I was too busy. Or I talked at them and they jumped on an iPad and I just let them go. Like, it isn't until I began tracking it, I'm like, oh, there's like sometimes a week will go by where I do almost none of this, right? And so what I try to do it for me, I try to do it in the car when we driving, like, hey, bro, tell me a story or this and that or da da da. And they don't know what I'm doing, but we practice endings and beginnings. I notice, I ask questions, I let them respond, and that's just building these sort of like connections in their brain to feel noticed, to feel healthy, and so there's always this outside disproportionate positive effect based on the data. So this messaging we begin to start to weave. So have the Aloha values, we wove in protective factors, then we're weaving this in. It's kind of look like on helix, right? And that's what we're trying to do. So we're trying to meld these 3 things so that families have clear tools like serve and return, clear sort of larger system context about their life with protective factors, but then it's rooted in things that are familiar, like the values. Yeah. Anything else you wanted to add about? Any questions?
So I do want to say it sounds like fancier than what it really is. Like, oh, serve and return. But it's normal things that you do probably day to day with your kids. when Kanoe said, when we're paying attention to them, when we're playing with them, when we're interacting with them. So we're really encouraging that kind of back and forth with our keiki. And like Kanoe said, easier said than done, right? Like we live in a computer, iPhone time where we can just like go through the motions. And so one of the things Kanoe did before another project was like just spend like a couple minutes a day daily with your kids and just like hear about their day, hear about what they're interested in. It's just it doesn't have to be like hours. Like we're not talking about like hours and hours. Just a little bit of time a day, daily, and that's the thing, daily, right? Like ongoing, and it's like here and there, wherever those pockets are that you can find to interact with your keiki. So
Yeah.
that's
And
gonna lead
again,
us. Oh,
this could
go
be
ahead.
construed as touchy-feely. I'll always argue it's practical. If even as a parent, right? Like you want your life to get easier parenting your kid, do this. Like that's part of it. That's also part of the sell, right? Is that like chances are if you talk to your kid 10 minutes, they'll be less likely to be like, ma, dad, I don't know. Breakdowns. Like I've done it, and even just anecdotally, I do them with, I was like, oh, they actually do it less in the afternoons. The whining, the fighting, because chances are that they got that thing sort of fed already, right? They piha already with some of that attention, and then they're like, oh, they're less likely to kind of have the meltdowns. So it's pretty interesting. And so these are the things that when we work with families that we're trying to tell them, like just try it out. And 7 minutes, do it for 7 to 10 minutes.
Yeah. It made me think about, so my son is 9 and he's like a touchy-feely kind of kid. And I remember last year, my Kane was saying like, oh, he's getting too old for us to like hold hands when we're walking, or like, like show like kind of affection, like from a Kane, from a dad to a son. And I thought to myself, like, it's interesting as a society how we put like it's okay when they're babies, right? Like you can hold their hand, you can hug them, you can kiss them, you can play with them. But as they get older, it's like it shifts, and it does shift. I'm not saying it doesn't, but it's interesting that it shifts, that it's like, okay, now you got to be a man. And what does that mean? Okay, now we're not going to do like these things anymore. We're not going to play the same way we did anymore. So it just was interesting to me how as a society, how the relationship kind of shifts for men and boys. I don't know, Kanoe, if you had that. So it made me think about that, like we think like play is only for little kids, but this serve and return is really about the give and take. It doesn't have to look a certain way, but it's just valuing your kid, letting them know that you love them, you're interested in them, and what they're doing in their life. That's really what it is.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the message that we want to like give to our kids, right? Is that we actually care about what your life is like. Who are you? What do you do? What do you like? So what are those opportunities where you practice this serve and return within your own family? What is it that distracts you? What keeps you from doing this, and what helps you? So what are those things that like really bring you together with your keiki, and what are the things that pull you, apart from each other from practicing this? So we're going to do another breakout. Maybe it might not be as long because of our time.
5-10 minutes, maybe.
Yeah. Can we?
20?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
And I'll put this in the chat too. Okay. So think about those things. How does this show up for you in your daily life, and what helps you or
Yeah,
distracts
pop
you
it in the
from doing
chat
it?
now. And then we'll send you out to breakouts. Thank you, Sarah. Send that up. Welcome back.
Yeah. Okay. Any thoughts on serve and return? Anything come up for people?
Does it resonate also? Does it not resonate with you? That's also fine too. I'll be interested. Or if like where is a good time?
So at the end, serve and return is kind of looks different in different families. Like one of the ladies in our group talked about how attending the sports events and becoming involved in that. And I talked about how my granddaughter was in marching band, and now she's 25, and I don't know any of her interests. So we serve in return, I guess, quote unquote, with each other as much as we used to.
That's super insightful. That makes total sense. I was talking about I have one child that is like, I understand everything that he loves. He loves sports, he loves this, he loves, and so I coached him, I do all, and the other one is Hello Kitty and anime. I know nothing, right? And so it takes tons of effort. The younger one used to say like, oh, Lono is your best friend, and I made me feel bad, right? And so I had to like really like pay attention on the side and be like, oh, what is that anime game? You still playing that game? Like, who's the guy again? And how much coins you get? And like literally, they be like, how you know about my coins? Like that. And that was super like, oh wow, like that's how little they must feel that I pay attention. I was like, I have like 50 gems now. I way past coins or something like that. And I was like, oh, so what is the difference? And then we spent 5 minutes. And then every day later, they'd be like, oh, I got more coins, today, or I got a new character. I still don't know what it's saying, but I at least go, oh, okay, so what can that character do? And I guess the thing, like, it matters, right? Whereas my older boy, super easy, like, oh, you miss your read, and you like, because you know what I mean, like easy, because I understand that, right? Like this, it's just like, even if I just found it's just takes a little bit more effort with different kids, right? And then you got to be like, okay, like the other one's just gonna come natural, right? Because I enjoy it, but this one just takes a little bit more effort. But then it's a gift that keeps on giving, because then they start offering it. Yeah. So, but that's a great point, darling. Great point.
Yes. And in the chat, Suli is highlighting Chad. I don't know if you want to share, expound on what you shared. Chad's doing it right.
Oh, he's doing it right. I should have had my son inside here listening to that.
Yeah.
Okay, record him.
Yeah, no, he's actually listening right now and trying to point out some things. I was like, oh, this kid. So that
that's
one
awesome.
only child.
Awesome.
Okay, Kayla, I like this one. Dinners, no technology. Just making sure we spend that time, those pockets. Yeah, dinner, bedtimes, car rides.
Yeah. And that's on hard one sometimes, right? It's on hard one. The kids will be like, but Dad, you always used to watch TV eat dinner in front of the TV. I said, do as I say, not as I do. No. So then you gotta be like, I guess I gotta start eating dinner at the table too, right? And that's like, okay, it's 20 minutes, and then you find the joy in it after a while. But that's a great point. Because no matter how much time you tell your kids, do as they say, not as I do, they always do as you do. You know what I mean? Like, it's only a matter of time, right? Okay. Anyone else? Anyone not? Oh. What are some opportunities? What helps? What distracts? Yeah.
Hey, I think that was all in the chat. Okay, Kanoe, we're doing examples now.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just wanted to share with you what some of our social media posts look like. So we just begin really just like, these are the values. What is lokahi? And then we sort of use examples and we go down. So it starts, for the lack of a better word, what we're almost trying to do with some of the families that we're getting this out to is beginning to build a brand, right? A non-judgmental brand that like, oh, they just give tips, right? It just kind of like tells us this, and then, oh, can we sign up for a toolkit, and we give it through a provider, and that have activities, and then like, try this activity, try that. And so by the time we get to more sensitive messaging, right, they already kind of trust us. When we start talking about the roots of violence, when we start talking about, the sort of sordid history with child abuse and that they already begin to trust us as a brand that has been helpful for them in the past, right? If we lead with, here's why there's rampant child abuse in certain communities, people will either be interested, like they will be watching a car accident, interested, or they're going to be like, this is very judgmental and this is very da-da-da. So these are the things where it starts off very soft and then we sort of build into the next messaging. So, most of the feedback, when we track some of our data, whenever we use cultural stuff, just on the sort of black and white data, those posts always get like triple or quadruple like shares and stuff like that. So it's already, we're also learning as we go by tracking the sort of metadata. Yeah. And especially, and then also the cultural stuff and then activities, which tells me, like me as a parent, bro, give me something to do because I kind of ran out of options here. Like there's only so many times you can play 20 questions with your kid. And especially like my kid cheat all the time. Like, but can change your answer. You know what I mean? In 20 questions. I was supposed to be an octopus and all of a sudden it was a dolphin cheater. And so there's only so many activities that you can do. And so like families, I find more and more liking and sharing that kind of stuff. So that's good for us to know as an initiative. How do we be really responsive to what the community is telling us? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the toolkits, go ahead, Shelly.
So we have different routes of how we're getting that messaging, right? We have our social media as one way. And then our second way is we partner with organizations and we give out these Ohana toolkits. So we don't do directly to families. We partner with our partner organizations and then they give it out to their families. And what's usually in there, you'll see, is a lot of what we talked about, right? Sharing about our Aloha values through like a practical guide, like what does it look like in your home? Our serve and return has a lot of games of how you can play. We have a keiki activity books. We're partnering with Hawaii Kaika Partnership, and we're using their Kalaboy Adventure books that they wrote with parents and community. And then we're doing emojis, just feelings. Identify your feelings. How do you feel today? All those kind of things. Breathing, like we did this morning, our hanuha. So really giving them kind of like a grab and go of things that they can read or do or play together as a family. And I do want to share that these toolkits are geared towards the younger kids. So you'll notice a lot of the things are very simple, right? Even our messaging, we're starting out very simple because we did want to try to reach out to those younger families, those families with young children, and kind of start from the beginning and setting that foundation. This year, we are expanding to our neighbor islands. Last year, we focused on Oahu families. And so this year, like Keiki o Ka'aina, we're partnering with the Maui group there to give out toolkits there. Hawaii Island and Kauai, we partner with different organizations just to make sure that we are responsive to the whole state, not just, centralized to Oahu. So that's our Aloha toolkit. And then Kanoe, you wanna?
Yeah, so that's pretty much us in a nutshell, in a relatively complex nutshell. And we don't have any of this figured out. It's not super clear, right? All I know is that there is definitely a need to change the narrative for our families for some of our families who get unfairly really dropped on them how hard it is to live out here, And Maui just as bad, if not worse than Oahu already, right? So you talk about overwhelmed, to Kayla's point, by the time you get home, and those of you, Kayla, like Kayla said, right, husband's a helper, she's a helper. When you get, even the helpers are stressed, let alone the helpees, right? And so what we're trying to do is just integrate maybe easier ways to frame family life that make more sense and are more practical in alleviating some of the stressors, right? Even if, and I'll always argue, the stressors that sometimes are unfair, disproportionately unfair on certain communities, right? Less resources, less advantages, and so we just try to be helpful, and we'll learn as we go. That's the only promise that we make. We learn as we go. Is this stuff helpful? And by and large, we've always been able to distribute everything that we've gotten, and we've always get a lot of feedback. And so, we hope that you folks like and follow us. We hope we're going to go into year 2 messaging and year 3 messaging over the next year. And we're hopeful that we can provide different types of tips that grow past just serve and return to de-escalation, to de-stressing the home, what happens when there are problems, how to solve them as a family. And so that's what we're moving to. And I super appreciate you guys taking the time.
Yes. And I wanted to share, we have a website. All our resources are free. You're welcome to download them. You're welcome to share them. You're welcome to use them with your families. We have our Instagram and Facebook too. We post weekly. So they're usually, like Kanoe said, like our basic foundational information, activities, resources in the community. So we really want it to be useful for families and for providers so that you can use them with your family. So it's only as good as you use it, right? All these things that we're trying to provide are just tools, but really it's in the hands of you and the families to implement and use and practice. So this is Kanoe's, Kanoe at ʻAʻaliʻialliance.com if you want to contact him. There's also me. So feel free if you want to talk stories some more, or if you just want to follow or get resources.
Anytime. Anybody talk story, let me know. I appreciate you folks planning. Thank you guys for coming. I'm humbled that anybody shows up at these things.
Mahalo, mahalo.
Okay. Ahuiho gang. All right.
Oh, mahalo, Suli. I see
I'll
that
see you
you
later.
shared.
All right.
Mahalo.
Aloha.
Mahalo, everybody. Ahuiho.